Hey, welcome in everybody. I am not senior recruiting ex and what's his name? Senior recruiting
Editor.
editor. That's it. That's it. Jeffrey Lee. I'm not him. I'm Cole Pinkston, Auburn live recruiting analyst and football. Doing recruiting and football, which by the way, might do a little bit of both in this show tonight. Okay, we'll roll with the punches. That seems to be the hot topic right now. We got some questions that go recruiting and football, so we'll do both. And I think it'll work because it's me and Alan tonight. Alan,
That's
how are
right.
you tonight?
I'm good, brother. I'm excited to get to talk to you. It's been a minute since we got to talk about real football, and I think we are expanding the recruiting show tonight, which I'm excited about. But today was kind of the first practice you guys got to see, but also some interesting recruiting news. Some people on campus the past couple of days, so a lot to talk about.
Well, look, it all goes together, especially when you see the football team for the first time and there's 40 plus new players out there, which also a lot of the players that return change their numbers. So I was like, I don't need a roster. I know their numbers. And as soon as I got out there, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to need a roster. I don't know everybody. I really don't. Like even some of the guys, that have changed their numbers, they also look different too. So it's like I needed a roster. I went back and got one. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Some recruiting news. If you missed it, there's been a few things that have happened. Flashback to Saturday, there were three big visitors, a couple of young guys, but you had Xavier Tiller,
Yes.
who we probably need to talk more about because that's an interesting situation. The way I look at it, probably the way you're looking at it now too, Alan. Because honestly, it almost feels like he was meant to be committed by now, and it's kind of strange that he's not. At least that's the way I'm viewing it. Maybe it holds off a little longer and he does commit, but we'll get into that a little bit. Seven Cloud was the big news that day. JUCO Georgia D Lyman commit there. I think he's been committed to Georgia at least twice. If you go back to high school, I'm not sure. I'd have to look back on that. But he's been a Georgia commit for a while. He's a class of 2026. He will play one more year of JUCO. Says Auburn, South Carolina, and Georgia are his top three, but remains committed to Georgia. So that's an interesting one. And then the last one that was there Saturday, who am I missing, Alan? Do you remember?
Uh,
Yeah, I don't remember. We'll figure it out. But Jordan
Carter.
Campbell.
Yeah, Jordan Campbell.
Oh, Devin Carter. Devin
Devin
Carter.
Carter was who was in town. Yeah.
And those guys kind of gave us a preview of what we could look for when we got out to spring practice. Now we've seen that. So it all pretty much lined up. I had a quarterback recruit that I talked to, a 2027 guy, Champ Smith. He told me, look, Ken Austin's told me some things about these quarterbacks, Deuce Knight, Jackson Arnold. He said, and I was like, okay, sounds good. We'll see when I come to practice. He said, I'm telling you what Coach Austin told me was legit. So
Okay.
I found that to be interesting. But Alan, what are your thoughts on the recruits that have been here recently? Jordan Campbell, Miami commit, was also here, and spring practice.
So all big, all points of emphasis in this class, and you are right that it is interesting what's going on with Tiller right now. That's one that I think we all felt really good about there for a while, but something hasn't happened. And when you have kind of space sometimes in between when you feel good about somebody or somebody that the staff, somebody we think the staff feels good about, um, I don't know. It becomes an interesting dynamic. Like, is he holding off for a particular reason? Is the staff holding him off from committing? Is it just, we're in the middle of this churn of making sure my social media post goes at the right time? I mean, there's all kinds of things it could be, right?
Sure.
I think you coined it once is there's a reason. I just don't know what it is. And that's kind of the situation with Xavier Tiller.
Yeah.
Dexter Carter, anytime, not Dexter Carter, excuse me, that's his father.
That's his dad, yes, who was also a
Devin,
good football
yeah,
player.
no doubt. Devin Carter, anytime you get him on campus, it's a big deal. You want to make sure that that young man stays in your class, not only because of the impact he creates on the field, but I think because the juice he gives you off the field. He's one of those kind of kids. We were talking a couple weeks back about who other players might gravitate towards. And to me, Devin Carter is one of those guys. And I think he can be a frontline peer recruiter for you in this class. And so continuing to keep him in a situation where he's excited about Auburn is, that's a big deal. And then obviously Seven Cloud, we've talked about it on and off, but line of scrimmage recruiting is important each and every year. I think he's going to end up being a big target for this class just because he's an instant impact guy. And you're going to need somebody to come in and layer immediately in there with Malik and a couple of other young guys that are still developing. But he's somebody that can come in right away and play for you probably day one, or at least be in that rotation. So all big-time recruits. And then Jordan Campbell's as athletic a linebacker as you can get. He's a sideline-to-sideline type guy, probably a weak side, if I had to guess, maybe even a dime, contingent on how they want to line him up. But a guy that's extremely athletic, physical, surprisingly physical given his size, but one of those sideline-to-sideline guys that's got really good athletic traits that I think projects well within this system. So all big-time prospects that are on campus. Recruiting probably hasn't hit the fever pitch that a lot of our subscriber base would love to see, but it's getting there. And I think by the time you get to Big Cat Weekend, you're going to kind of start to see some of the wheels that this staff has put in motion behind the scenes, and it's just not as apparent to everybody else just yet.
Well, it's just that time of year for one, and for two, Auburn is Sweet 16 bound in basketball. Yeah. That's got everybody's attention. And you know what? I love basketball, Alan. I do.
I know. I know you do, Cole, but I'm privy to our group chat and everything else. So
sure,
other people don't know.
Well, it's Zach says he does not believe me. I love basketball. I played a little pickup basketball once. I like it. Okay, but that's got everybody's attention right now. So I can understand if you miss a few recruiting updates, and they're starting to file in a lot quicker now. It was dead for a while. I'll just be honest.
Yeah.
Even when it opened up, I went to the complex a few times. And I was like, all right, this is usually a day where there would be recruits here.
Right.
And it just wasn't happening. And I don't quite know the answer to that, but it has kicked up. I mean, Jordan Campbell, you mentioned him, Miami linebacker commit, 4-star guy. It's so many takeaways from that visit. He knew Rock Bellantoni a little bit prior to him coming to Auburn. That's how that one sort of got kicked up.
Sure.
DJ Durkin went through linebacker tape. This is what Jordan Campbell was telling me today. And he called Jordan Campbell and said, look, you're one of my favorite guys in the country.
Wow.
So that was the way I interpreted that. And also the other interesting takeaway from that was, hey, Jordan Campbell reached out to Auburn. Like, he knew who Rock Bellantoni was. He had an idea about Auburn. He had been there before. And when he committed to Miami, he's been committed to Miami for a long time, actually. He still reached out to Auburn and said, look, I want you to recruit me. I don't want this, I don't want to be standoffish just because I'm committed somewhere. Let's talk. Let's get this process going. And he said Auburn's one of the schools that really reciprocated that. And when they heard that, they were like all in. And he's really enjoying that. So he's been to Auburn a few times now. He's going to come back. He's looking at maybe Big Cat. He's looking at another spring practice, and he's looking at an OV. So that's a really interesting development. And the same was true for Seven Cloud, like we pointed out too. A couple of visitors, and I put this on the board, tight end, and the reason why I'm just iffy on the Xavier Tiller situation. They're in it with some tight ends, man.
Yeah.
And I know that's not like the popular position to talk about or whatever, but look, I mean, you get the right kind of tight end, these guys can be first rounders, right?
For sure. And Hugh Freeze has had a couple of really, really good ones. So, I mean,
yeah,
Evan Ingram's about as good a tight end as you're going to find, man.
You tell me you wouldn't want an Evan Ingram on your offense, in your offense.
Absolutely Swiss Army knife with a lot of different things he can do. And I think some of the guys they're recruiting are like that. Other guys are more kind of inline type tight ends, but you got to have a variety, right? I mean,
Sure.
Because of the diversity of the game and the way you need to attack things differently, at times you need tight ends that are more those inline guys that can help you in your zone blocking scheme. Other times you need that more athletic tight end that can split out. And I think Ben's doing a fantastic job of recruiting all different kinds of players for that position. And Xavier Tiller fits in that athletic type, but maybe again, we don't know all the things. Maybe there's somebody else they like better, and maybe it's the young man's just trying to make sure he's ready when he commits this next time.
So pretty much all of the tight ends that we know about, Alan. Caden Prothro is going to be back this weekend, I believe.
Yep.
J.C. Anderson coming down from Illinois. That's the word right now. He's expected to be in Auburn this weekend for an unofficial visit. Braden Fogel is expected to be back very soon, or I think it would be his first visit, actually, Braden Fogel. So tight ends coming in hot. I think because of that, they're going to get a look at all these guys. Some of them are visiting for the first time. Don't forget about Evan Jacobson.
Big one.
Ty Gotch. I'm not exactly sure how to say his last name. I did ask. They said they're calling him Ty G. I said, okay.
Probably smart. And this is definitely the way I'm going to go the route on this show. That's for sure. You don't want me saying a last name.
I said, okay, we'll call him Ty G. I'm going to ask him when next time I talk to Ty how to say that, because we need all the help we can get here. But
there you go.
Yeah, mentioning defensive line, before we get into questions, I did want to throw this at you, Alan. Viewing spring practice on Tuesday. We've talked about how we're concerned a little bit with the defensive line. I wouldn't say overly concerned, but you want another piece or two there, and that's going to happen. But I came away going, hey, that group might be a little better than we think after watching them today on Tuesday. I saw Dallas Walker make some plays. I saw Bobby Travis in there. I saw Malik Autry rolling around the fronts, playing nose, playing 3, playing 5 in the 3-man. Jared Smith had a sack in team drill. There's some things going on there where I'm like, okay, maybe this is I think those young guys are going to contribute, one. And two, the guys that we're not talking about, like Dallas Walker, Zykevis Walker, by the way.
Yes.
Playing some 3.
Yeah, that's what we had talked about the previous show. I thought that was really interesting. I saw your note today on that.
So, that's what I'm just telling you. I watched it and I go, I might have just sold that group short just a touch. I think there's some players there. I was impressed. I'll put it that way. I liked what I saw there. It looked right. They're playing hard. Of course, Vontrell King-Williams is jumping around. He's got energy, and they seem to reflect that. Now, maybe that's a testament to Vontrell, Alan.
I think it probably is a compliment to him, and it's a compliment to the development of these guys, because you talk about a guy like Zeke Walker, who's been in the program for forever, and it would have been really easy for him to say, you know what, I played for 5 years. I'm ready to hang it up. Sure. But he's come back out. He looks dedicated and focused. He's got an opportunity to earn some playing time here with Malik Blockton at that 3 tech. And you could always swing him back out to 5 as a heavy 5 to give you some flexibility or portability at that position as well. Keldrick Falk's a little nicked up, so he's not out there right now. So it's an opportunity for some other guys to step into the forefront here and see what they can do. But I trust your eye, and the fact that you got to lay eyes on them today, go through drills, do things, and some of their team drill work, team concept work. I like that. I like that you were encouraged by that. And again, I think you and I both are still on the same page. They're going to go get 1 or 2 more pieces, but maybe they don't have to be the level of piece me and you thought they had to be.
Right.
Maybe it's a different piece, right?
Sure. I didn't even mention Malik Blockton, Amaris Williams.
Yeah.
How about Darion Smith was playing a lot of 3. Jordan Crawford was out there playing nose. I didn't mention Chris Murray.
Chris Murray, who got some snaps at the 5 and at the buck. Interesting.
Yeah, an interesting thing that they were doing too is I saw Joe Phillips put his hand on the ground, right? And I'm like, okay, that's different. But then he jumped over and was in a stand-up on the next play. So I'm wondering if there's something a little more interchangeable about this 5 and buck position maybe with Rock Bellantoni's influence. I don't know. It's a little different than what I remember from seeing all
Sure.
the practices a year ago and watching the games. Um, and speaking of defensive lineman, I met Mike Blanc on Tuesday, Alan. I was very impressed with him, and he's taking over as team chaplain. So, yeah, Mike Blanc, that's the guy we never mention when we talk about older players. But, dude, how important was he to that 2010 team?
Big time important. Massive part of that rotation. You had a group of guys in there that really kind of fought their tails off on the other side of Nick Fairley. Zach Clayton being one of those.
Yeah, yeah.
Mike Blanc was another.
Oh, saw Gabe Wright at practice today too.
Okay.
Gabe Wright. But anyway, we have questions from the corner. We had to. There's a lot to talk about. I couldn't believe it. I looked up at the end of the day on Tuesday, and I was like, "Wow, I've written 5 articles today. That's crazy." It just came out of nowhere. So it just content on top of content. All kinds of stuff to talk about. So that's why we're doing sort of a versatile show here. We'll go back and forth, and we'll do what we have to do with that. But this is the Auburn Live Recruiting Show, so don't forget that.
There you go.
Question number 1, Adam P1. Always in the questions, man. I appreciate Adam P1. With Big Cat being, as he checks his notes, 10 days away. Yeah, I guess it is, isn't it? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Which visiting player is the biggest need for the program?
Ooh.
Let's see. Let's pull that list up.
I got it right here. So I'm going to read you some names and you tell me. Now, we still have Zion Ely on our list. I don't think either you or I think he's going to be there.
Right.
Aiden Harris, Andrew Harris, Jira Edwards, Jaquez Wilkes, Jace Matthews, Jordan Thomas, Gavin Meyer, Parker Pritchett, Wayne Henry, Dalton Toothman, Wilson Zaire, and last but not least, Adam. Yeah.
You skipped over that one. I was waiting for you to pronounce
100% I did. I was going to let you pronounce it, Big Dog.
Well, I'm strictly giving it my best shot here.
Okay.
Adam Balagon Ali.
Okay.
How's that sound?
I like that.
Okay. So the question, which one of these guys, and there's going to be more than that, I believe. We're still trying to figure out who all's going to end up there. There's been some changes of plans. Obviously, we'll try to get that list more finalized as we inch closer. But just off of that list alone, Alan, biggest need. I'm leaning towards Jaquez Wilkes.
With the need at linebacker in this class, I think there's an argument to be made for that one. Specifically, if you're talking need, I'm going to go for impact or like buzz that it would create, because I do think this class needs some juice right now. And I would go with Jira Edwards on that. I think he would create a lot of juice for Auburn on the trail, and specifically in the Maryland area where they're trying to pluck a couple of other guys. So give me Jira Edwards for biggest need right now in this class, just from a buzz standpoint. I think him committing, that signals something to other commits or possible commits.
Sure. Are y'all able to see this? I just shared my screen. I haven't tried this. Oh, sweet. So I can be on this and share that screen. That's new to me. I love that. Thank you, Zach. All right. So Jaquez Wilkes. Here's the thing with him, though, Alan. He hasn't been to Auburn in a while.
Right.
So that's where I'm like, Tennessee, Texas A&M, they've kind of gotten strong on that recruitment. I'm like, where is Auburn exactly? It's been a minute since he's been there. I talked back and forth with him just a little bit, and he seems to be ready for this visit and making his way from Wadley there. Local guy. We talked about it. DeMarcus Riddick, like athleticism, probably might be in that category. So he's one of the ones that I'm looking at pretty heavily to answer your question, Adam P. Let's see, April 5th.
And he's a big time target for the staff. I think we both know that to be a fact. So, he's a big need, a big want in this class.
For sure. And then assuming that Jason Matthews still makes it, and I think he will. That's a big one. You want to close out that wide receiver class really strong with what you have. Is that a guy that they push for? It really seems like they might want to, but there's some options. I want to see how that plays out. Here's one right here. I will say
Big one.
this guy right here. I've heard some buzz on this guy, Jordan
Okay.
Thomas. It's been a minute since he's been to campus as well. I believe he was there for junior day. Was that the last time he was there?
That sounds right. Yes.
So he's one of your New Jersey guy. I think this is probably DJ Durkin's territory when it comes to that. I will say I've heard some buzz that Auburn is don't count Auburn out of this recruitment. Basically, maybe they're not the one being talked about as much as others, but Jordan Thomas is high on Wesley McGriff, high on DJ Durkin, and watch out for Auburn in this recruitment. So if that's the case, I'll tell you too, I thought maybe the secondary was one of the best looking groups on the field at spring practice, Alan.
Yeah. Yeah, the wide receiver room and the secondary, those are the two spots where they have stacked talent, and you can tell that they're ready to compete with the upper echelon teams that they're going to face year in and year out. I mean, it's been impressive what they've done, but to add a player of his caliber, it just continues to stockpile talent within that room, and the kind of talent that now you don't have to rush it onto the field, right? Because you've got that solid core there that we've talked about, and he's just another piece to the layered depth that you're trying to create at that position, so long as you can continue to get guys to buy into the development piece of it. That is the tough part at times. Kids get frustrated, but he's a really, really big-time player, long, lean corner, good hips, good enough speed to be able to play that man-to-man coverage that DJ Durkin likes to play, but smart enough to probably play some match zone and make a play on the ball in space. So really encouraged by what I've seen from him, and I think he's a big-time player. And again, that would be a big-time get for Auburn if you can get that one to go down.
For sure. And last thing on this, Alan, you got Gavin Meyer, Parker Pritchett, Dalton Toothman, Wilson Zier, or Zaire. I'll have to ask him how we pronounce that too. But you got those four offensive linemen. Stars aren't there with these guys, but Auburn loves all four of them. We know that. Which one of these guys stands out to you? Which one of these offensive linemen stands out to you as, hey, this guy's, for this particular visit weekend, this is a big deal?
I think it's Wilson Zaire, though. Parker Pritchett, Dalton Toothman in their own right are really good players that have SEC schools after them. But when you look at the schools that have offered Wilson, and then you think about the fact that his brother was also played here, so he's kind of a legacy to a degree. And then the position of tackle, and he's a true tackle. When you watch his tape, he lines up at right tackle predominantly right now. I think he flashes enough athleticism to be featured as a left at some point or developed as a left. But aggressive run blocker, a guy that's picked up a lot of offers here recently.
Yeah, look at this. Look at this right here.
Yeah.
That's the front page of offers here. Auburn, Michigan, Georgia, Penn State, South Carolina, Alabama, Florida, Florida State, and the list goes on. But those are all in the last, maybe 2 to 3 months that he got these offers.
Sure. And he's not a guy with a ton of highlight tape, but a kid that, I think when people got to lay their eyes on him during evaluation season, when they were making some of their January visits, they were just really impressed with the frame. And then you combine that with some of the athleticism and power that you see on tape, and it explains why those rash of offers have come in. But to me, because he projects as a true tackle, that's a premium position. You don't have one in this class just yet. I think he probably makes him the most important offensive lineman that's going to be in this group. But again, I think a lot of the interior guys that they're bringing on in Toothman, and the other young man from Columbus, Parker Pritchett. So those are big-time ads as well, but it's probably Zaire for me right now.
I think I would agree with you. If you're looking for a potential Big Cat commitment, I'm looking towards offensive line here. I think Zaire is one to watch just because of what we know about him and his brother. And even though he's got all these big offers, I kind of like Auburn in this one. I'll be honest. We'll see how it plays out. He's going to take he's going to look at those offers, and who could blame him for that, obviously. But I kind of like where Auburn is with that one. I'd watch Parker Pritchett. I've got a prediction in for Parker Pritchett. Maybe they want to try to do something on Big Cat. I will say, Big Cat this year, it's not. I don't think you're going to be matching the Perry Thompson flipping to the pool,
No,
all the commitments that happened last year. Who all? Hezekiah Harris, Jermichael Garrett, Antonio Coleman flips late.
it was 5 in one day, right? Like it's too
Blake
early in the
would be.
cycle. Yeah,
Like would be. Yeah, so you got a lot of commitments that day, which we talked about before. Can you top the Perry flip? And I felt like Auburn at least matched it or close to it with the one last year. Guys, the schedule is so out of whack.
yeah.
It is unbelievably out of whack. And if you watch Hugh Freeze's press conference on Tuesday, he mentioned that. It's like, guys, spring doesn't even make sense to me. Like, we have so
No.
many injuries. He rattled them off. Keldrick Falk, Connor Lew, Xavier Chaplin, Bryce Kane, Champ Anthony. The list goes on. They got all these guys, and what it is they're still recovering from the season. Okay, they had things that were lingering during the season. They got some surgeries probably, and tried to get it fixed before next season. And now's the time for rehab. But you're going into spring practice where you only get this allotted amount of practices. So if you don't go full pads, you're missing out where somebody else is. It's one of those things where it's like you have to do it, but it's
Sure.
So Freeze had an issue with that. But the schedule, that's the point here. The schedule is crazy. I mean, with how they're trying to get the portal all fit in, with how they're trying to get official visits now and the way that's going, it's just, I mean, you keep up with that stuff, Alan. It's wild right now.
It is wild. I mean, it's wild on multiple fronts. And I think, look, the NCAA has tried to put guide rails around NIL and the transfer portal to the point that, I mean, it's just, there's not a lot they can do there. But what they can do is clean up the recruiting calendar and make it make sense. And right now, the way they have things structured, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for coaching staffs. It doesn't make sense for recruiting staffs. It doesn't make sense for the kids. I think it might make sense for the guys in Indianapolis, and that's about it. So hopefully at some point they'll be able to put their arms around this and make it make sense in a way where you can just kind of, I mean, college football kind of has its toe in this half professional, half not model right now. And I think when you look at the NFL and the way it dominates the calendar, if they would shift things to kind of align in that way where you have one big portal window, but you do it after the season, right? And then you're done. You have one signing day in February or December, if that's what you want to do to continue the early enrollee trend. But to me, I feel like everything's so rushed now that you could push it backwards a little bit if you alter one thing, and that's create summer OTAs in June and do away with spring football.
Right.
And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, and a lot of people don't want to do that. And Deion Sanders is doing something that's really interesting to me out there in Colorado right now by bringing in Syracuse, or trying to bring in Syracuse to have some scrimmages in a spring game against each other. I think that could be something that might get some traction. But right now, with the way the portal is structured, it just doesn't make sense to have spring where you have it. It doesn't make sense to have multiple windows, and it certainly doesn't make sense to have a portal open while you're still playing a playoff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's crazy to me that it's common sense to people like you and I, but it's not common sense to people that make the rules.
Maybe it will be. It's still new to everybody, and I'll give just a little bit of a benefit of a doubt, like as they're trying to get it all together. Maybe
Sure.
Coaches are not going to do that. They're ready to have it right. I don't blame them. But the point, again, is Big Cat. I just don't know if it's going to be the same this year. So go ahead and prepare for that. I'll just be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it's, again, too early in the cycle for you to have a ton of commitments. I do think they'll have, 1, 2, 3, something like that.
Yeah. Hugh Freeze and crew know how to do an event.
Sure. So they'll have right. They'll have one to pull out of their back pocket, but it won't be the same explosion of getting 5 in one day. I mean, what was it? J. Mike, Tootle, Blake Woodby, Antonio Coleman, and then I guess you had
Hezekiah Harris.
Hezekiah Harris was also that day, and then obviously you follow up
Derek Smith.
with Derek Smith there 2 days later. So a lot of buzz coming on that one. Don't anticipate that, but this could be the lay the groundwork moment for when you have those big commitments come July timeframe.
Yep, that's right. All right, question 2. Honk if you coached for Bama. How many more D linemen are we looking to take in the next portal window? Ooh, okay. Well, we just kind of hit on this. Just because I like the way the defensive line looked doesn't mean that anything's changed. I still think the idea is to get maybe the Zykevis Walker at 3 is an experiment. Maybe that's not what they want to do.
Sure.
I personally like it. I think he's more fit to be there. But maybe they want to try to get some 3s. I don't know if everybody that was working at 3 that I saw at practice is technically going to be a 3. That's the position where they need help. So I think at least 1, maybe 2. That's where I'm at right now.
I would agree with that number. I think they could, if you take 2, maybe you take a 3 and a 5.
Yeah.
To give yourself some versatility there. But I'm with you. I think 1 to 2 is the number for sure right now.
And I think again, maybe minus Antonio Coleman as he's trying to put on some weight. Darion Smith's not a big guy either. So, but I mean, these guys could contribute. They really can. Malik Autry can. I think Jordan Crawford definitely can at nose. So you got a little bit of depth there where I was kind of just looking through the roster and going, okay, who's that? Who's that? Okay, this isn't bad.
Yeah.
This isn't bad. You can work with this. Can you get one more and be a lot, more comfortable? Absolutely. And I think that's what they will do. So if that answers your question, I think 1 for sure, maybe 2. I'm leaning more towards 1 at the moment, just from what I saw today. Are you leaning more towards 1 or 2?
I'm going to go with what you're saying on this because you got to see him up close and personal, Cole. But 1 makes sense to me, especially given what you have to pay to get a defensive lineman out of the portal. I mean, it's a hefty price tag, and depending on where Auburn sits in its budget, I tend to lean to be more fiscally conservative than not on that one.
Might be
Just
worth
because
it.
you have other needs, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I saw a mock draft that had Walter Nolan and who was the other guy that Auburn had a shot with? Michigan State.
Oh,
Derek Harmon.
yes.
I saw a mock draft where those guys were both first rounders recently.
I believe it.
Those are both transfer guys that Auburn could have easily. I think they could have had a shot with Derek Harmon. I'll put it that way. Walter Nolan, maybe not as much, but we've seen if Auburn wants to get a guy, they seem to have the power to do that.
Sure.
It's all about prioritization. So anyway, question 3, G. Russ. If Auburn misses on the tier 1 trio of running backs, tier 1 we're thinking is probably Derek Cooper, Jay Lamar, and EJ Crowell.
Yes.
Okay.
Those are definitely your tier 1.
All right. Who's most likely to be the 4th option behind those guys?
I know they like a guy named Terry Hodges, but I haven't seen any traction with Auburn there.
Right. Man,
Do you think they double back on like a Carson Baker from? Is that
maybe.
somebody? Is that somebody they circle back on?
Possible. They were a little higher on him at one time. I don't think they're quite there with him anymore. They still like him, but lower on the board. I think they like Jonas Walton a lot, but that one seems to be getting away from him a little bit too.
It does. It does. That's a good question because I just don't know.
I don't either. I mean, you have JaMychal Jones who just committed to Ole Miss, and I just don't know where he is on Auburn's board. If Auburn gets to him on the board, you know what I mean? This might be one of those. TJ Ward is a guy that I know they like from Nashville Christian School. Goes to the same school as Jared Curtis.
Okay.
That's the guy they like. I haven't heard his name in a while. But it's a question that G. Rust is asking, I think, because it's the same question we might have right now. I mean, I don't know if we have an answer to this. It's just we'll have to see how that plays out. We'll have to see who visits. Does it feel like Auburn might not hit on one of these tier one guys?
It does, just because Jay Lamar is trending very heavy to Georgia right now. I think most in the industry, at least from the national perspective, believe that Derek Cooper is going to land with Miami. And then Crowell is projected at this point to Alabama. Now, again, this is prior to all official visits, so who knows what happens, right? There was a time that DeMarcus Riddick was favored very heavily to go to Alabama, and yet he ended up at Auburn. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here in this situation because I don't know the individual recruitments. And that one took a while to play out. I mean, I didn't believe that Riddick was going to land with Auburn until we got damn near into July.
Yeah.
And then I finally had heard enough at that point, like, okay, I'm buying. So this staff has a way of turning the tide with guys, and I think this may be one where you take a long haul approach. Like you keep the top of your board, and if you don't land one of those guys, you're going to continue to recruit the top of your board, and you're going to kind of evaluate as the season goes on and see if one of those gems kind of breaks out. You know, running back's one of those positions. It feels like somebody shoots up the board every year.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's one where, you know, you can find somebody that develops a little bit late. So that's probably my answer on that, just because I'm with you. I haven't heard enough of them liking Carson Baker to really turn on that one, and he would be the logical one to me that kind of falls into Auburn's wheelhouse of a school they know they can recruit at, have relationships and contacts with, kids pretty highly regarded. But again, it doesn't sound like Auburn's putting a lot of emphasis on him at the moment. I think Texas A&M, Clemson, a couple others have kind of prioritized him at this point. Auburn has not so far. It doesn't seem like anyway.
Yeah, you never know with the running back. It's one of those positions, like you said, that guys emerge late. Their senior years. Jarquez Hunter is a great example of that. You know,
Really is.
So there's guys out there that we just aren't talking about yet, that we don't know quite where Auburn is with them yet, that you'll probably see in the summer, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
When they'll start emerging. But I'm not necessarily saying Auburn's not going to get one of these tier one guys yet. If I'm picking one right now that I think Auburn will have a shot with that we don't feel like they do today, I think I will go with Jay Lamar.
I would agree with that. Because I think Auburn's going to make a heck of a pitch to him when he gets on campus.
Yeah, I agree. And he's going to go through with his visits. He seems to be very into Auburn. It's just that Georgia's going to be tough to beat, and we know that. You know that going in, right? You
do. I think you know you're fighting an uphill battle. With Georgia, they're looking to take multiple backs. Auburn's only looking to take one. Does that do anything for Auburn there? I know he's talked about wanting to play in a rotation that's going to get him developed. Georgia certainly offers that, but
sure.
Is Jay Lamar who they ultimately decide they want? That's the thing to me. Yeah. Because if they slow play him, I think that cracks the door for Auburn to have an opportunity there.
Sure. All right, question number 4. Hey, guys, it's Don. What would your floor and ceiling be on the 2025 recruiting class on signing day in December?
I assume he means 2026, yeah?
26, yeah. So what's the floor and ceiling for the eventual signing class for 26? I think it's going to be a top 10 class. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like it might fall out of the top 10?
I think it could, depending on how the season goes. I do think Hugh Freeze is a heck of a recruiter, but this is a year that he's going to need some proof of concept, I believe. I think it's gotten to the point now that if you don't see some success on the field, and by success, I mean 7-5 or better, and the offensive product needs to look improved, that you could find yourself in a pretty precarious spot on the recruiting trail. Like, I mean, I think he needs a Florida bounce back type year to where you get some wins and guys can kind of see exactly what you're building. But I'm going to put floor at 12, ceiling at 6. I think that's the range I'm looking at right now for Auburn.
Okay. I'm a little different. My ceiling's going to be 5, so I think they can break the top 5.
Okay.
I think they can absolutely do that, and here's why. I I, I am of the belief that this is going to be a better football season for Auburn.
I like that.
I'm crazy. I'm not thinking straight. I got it, but I just feel better about this one. And it's maybe it's a little bit coming off the high of watching spring practice, and I like looking back to other springs. You're not looking at the complete team yet, which is interesting. I like what I'm looking at already without it being the complete team.
Okay.
So if that's the case, and I'm still somewhere around seven wins, maybe pushing to 8. I'm still kind of hanging at 7 until they prove me wrong.
Sure.
But that would be a trend in the right direction. Even that would.
Big time.
And the way these guys have recruited without any help from the field and the record, you give them any kind of momentum on that, and I think they're going to have a chance to get a top 5 class. So that's where my ceiling is. I think my floor is going to be 10. I don't think they fall outside the top 10.
Okay.
So 5 and 10, I think they land somewhere in the middle there is probably where it happens. Again, 8, 7, 8, which is where you were this past year. I see that same kind of landing spot. So, question number 5. High school football scout is what Jeffrey calls you. I'll go with it. It looks good to me. Vonnie Cleveland or Bryce Perry Wright. He must have known it was a Colin Allen show tonight.
Yep, for sure.
Like this.
For sure.
Vonnie Cleveland or Bryce Perry Wright. Which one do you like best? Which does Auburn have the best chance of signing?
Okay. I'm going to go with Vodney, best chance on signing. I think Auburn knows who the decision maker is in that recruitment. I think they know what it would take to get it done. And I think in-state is always a little bit easier to recruit for the staff, or it seems to be over the course of this past 2 years. So he's going to be my answer to that. As far as which one's best, they're 2 different players, right? But
they're different.
At this point, I'm going to say Bryce Perry Wright is a more polished, ready-made player than Vodney Cleveland. Upside for Vodney might be a little bit higher, but being the position he plays, it's not like a sexy position, right? Like nose guard is not one of those you look at on the field and they're going to have a ton of stats. But I think given what he does, potentially might have a bigger upside just because of his frame.
Yeah, Vodney's position is not the one where pro scouts are going, all right, let's see those pro day numbers.
Yeah.
They don't care as much about that. It's let's see the film. How did you hold up against doubles? How did you do that?
Yes.
That's gonna be Vodney's litmus test when he gets to college. And I think he's pretty good at that. So I like him a lot. The one I think Auburn has the best chance of signing, I'll go with Vodney too.
Yep.
Although I do think Auburn has a good chance of signing Bryce Perry Wright. The one I like best, Bryce Perry Wright.
Yep.
Yeah. I like the guys with burst. I don't like when somebody doesn't have a good get off. It bothers me.
I hear you.
It does. And I'm not saying that Vodney doesn't, but there were times when you saw Jordan Crawford look like he was moving at a different speed than Vodney because you got to see them right next to each other.
Yeah.
So I think that's something in Vodney Cleveland's game that can really take it up a notch. I think he knows that. He's going to get the chance to do that at Parker, obviously. He is being well recruited by many programs for a reason. He's got the upside, like you said, maybe more than Bryce Perry Wright. But I like the playmaking ability of Bryce Perry Wright. I think he's a playmaker. And I just – you can't ever have enough playmakers, in my opinion.
Agreed.
So I actually feel good about Auburn's chances with both of those guys. That's where I'm at. All right, question 6. Barner Becca, 98. Who will be the Keldrick Falk of this season in terms of being a breakout star? Okay.
Let's see.
I would say there's some candidates here. It's not just one guy, probably.
No, but if you're talking about a guy that flashed last year, which is what Keldrick did as a freshman, and then really kind of took it to another level, let me go with DeMarcus Riddick. I think he's a guy that's going to ascend this season and somebody that showcased, I mean, like you saw his traits on tape
Yeah.
in kind of an isolated role, right? They didn't give him a ton, but what he did get, he excelled at. And so I think he's somebody whose role will continue to grow with the team, a guy that has NFL upside. I mean, he's just dripping with it. And a guy that could be a difference maker for the defense this year.
I like it. I think I'm leaning towards maybe a DB here.
Okay.
As good as Jay Crawford and Caleb Harris were. I think Jay Crawford's pretty established. Caleb Harris is really close to being established as this big time player. I think he is the real deal, man.
Okay.
Caleb Harris, he doesn't get talked about a whole lot for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. I think he's going to be your breakout star that you're starting to go, this might be an NFL guy.
Okay.
Right? That's how I see him. He's just got that mentality. He's got the ability. He's a great open field tackler. He can do so many things, but he plays safety, and he's very good at that role. So I like Caleb Harris for that. Question 7, B's 5. What freshman saw a lot of freshmen on Tuesday? Boy, do you see having a big impact this fall? And do you see them having a big impact as Blockton, Jay Crawford, Cam Coleman, Caleb Harris, Malcolm Simmons did? Before we even answer this, would you like to take a guess at who I thought was the standout freshman of the day, Alan? It may be reflected in what I wrote, but there's one guy. There's one guy for me. So who do you think that is?
Oh, I think it's a nose tackle out of Parker High School all day long.
He'd be number 2. He would be
okay. Okay.
Which I'm very surprised by because I thought going in, of course, it's Jordan Crawford.
Right? So then it's going to be Blake Woodby for you, huh?
Blake Woodby was making some plays. In fact, he got up, climbed the ladder on a ball. I can't remember who threw it. It was either Deuce or Jackson Arnold that threw it. Really shouldn't have had a chance to get a hand on this ball. He climbed the ladder, got a hand on it, kind of cupped it, brought it down, and he didn't finish the play through the ground. And I thought, who is that? I didn't see the number. I was like, that was a play right there. Got up, it was number 12, Blake Woodby. And this was during a team drill with a lot of, I would say, first teamers out there on defense. So he's out there, and he's doing good things in one-on-ones. Maybe Blake Woodby's the one that we are not discussing enough as far as this goes and contributing. And I think there's a path for him to contribute at corner.
Yes, very much so. I mean, what happens if they determine that Kay and Lee fits best at safety or at nickel? And now you need another corner out there. Blake could absolutely get into that rotation. So, and everything, like for those that didn't pay attention to Wes McGriff's interview the other day, that Cole and a couple of other reporters on the beat were able to sit down with several of the assistant coaches. He was singled out by Wes McGriff as being somebody that's caught his eye. So it's not just Cole saying this. This is being reciprocated by the coaching staff. And typically when you hear it in two different places, it means that the young man is probably going to see the field. So I think that's a really good pick.
Well, he just doesn't it's like you almost miss him when you're out there. I was actually standing with Christian Clemente talking about this because, he and I were there a lot because Blake Woodby was on campus so much this past year. And he's a personality you don't forget. You remember we had him on the show on signing day. He's got some
great
energy. Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Blake Woodby. I'm pulling for him. I think he's got the right mentality to go in there and play right now. And I was actually talking to Clemente about this, and I was like, man, I almost forget about him as a freshman. It doesn't even look like he's a freshman. He looks like he's been here.
And a guy that 100% is somebody that's going to contribute, somebody that is mature and coming out of that St. Francis program. He's just the kind of guy that's seen enough high-end football that he's not necessarily just completely swimming right now. I mean, I think there's always an acclimation period for freshmen, But when you play the kind of schedule they do, you come out the kind of program that they have there at St. Francis, they really prepare them for the next step. And I think you're seeing that with Blake right now as a guy that's come in with a lot of finish and is just going to continue to get better the more he acclimates to the college game.
Speaking of the St. Francis guys, when I put the video up today, there was a quick snippet of number 16, right? And somebody in the comments goes, "Man, DeMarcus Riddick's a unit," or something like that, right? That was the comment.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, if you're talking about number 16, that is Bryce Diaz, not DeMarcus Riddick.
That's correct.
But you would almost be fooled because he looks the part as well. So I also wanted to give a mention to JJ Falk. If you saw JJ Falk in the video that I put out today, I think some people are going to be surprised about the way he looks. He does not look like a freshman. He looks like his brother, but maybe a little. I'm not sure how to explain it. He does look like Keldrick, but different build going on there. But he looks like the real deal. Private chat. Maybe one day you guys will get to see that. I hope not.
100%.
So freshmen, there's a lot of guys, man. I almost wouldn't argue with 10 different answers on that. I think a lot of these guys are going to play. Zach said, "No, I think we need to keep that private. Need to keep my job."
Yes, you do. Because look, I get everybody banned, so don't even. You know what I mean? Like, let's never reveal that, Zach.
Oh boy! All right, question number 8. Nooner. Oh, Nooner. Don't you wish you could hear Jeffrey read that one?
Yes. Speaking of getting banned, go ahead.
For each side of the ball, what is one elite trait that is missing from the current team? And what 2026 recruit that Auburn has a realistic shot with could fill the need for that trait?
Okay.
Wow, that's a really thoughtful question there. All
right, let's start defense. Let's go pass rush. I still think Auburn lacks some twitch off the edge. I think a guy like Trenton Henderson, contingent on how he continues to develop, could give you that. An underrated pass rusher, I really, really like Andrew Harris. I mean, I do. When I watch his tape, I see a guy that is a player. And I know his ranking doesn't reflect that, but I think he's someone that this staff likes and that I like that could create some twitch off the edge, give you some pass rush. Because that's the thing to me. That's what's missing, right? Is that Auburn has gotten better with its interior pass rush, but it's been inconsistent on the edges. And I would like to see Auburn be able to kind of just create pressure from all angles and having that impact buck outside linebacker, I think is kind of that next step for them. So give me that position on defense.
I like it. You know what? I was thinking about it while you were saying that, and you speak of linebacker, and as good as Eugene Asante did at the combine, and he did, he killed it. I mean, he was the most athletic linebacker there, I think, right?
Yeah.
And he did really good things for Auburn. I mean, let's not act like he was like that was surprising. He's a good football player, man. When was the last? So I need to see the Zacoby McClain mentality back in the middle. And that's not even a shot at Eugene Asante. He was not a middle linebacker. That's not what he does. He did have to play in the box probably more than he was comfortable with because they haven't had a guy like Zacoby McClain in a while. It just hadn't been there. So I think that needs to be back. Who is the guy in the class that brings that? Maybe it's Elijah Melendez on the team currently. It could be. I'm not ready to just say that because
sure.
You have to first understand how much I love Zacoby McClain. Might be one of my top 5 favorite Auburn players in my lifetime. I would go that far.
All right. So AU Full-Time and I had like a little bit of a playful exchange about Jermichael Garrett, who I think is a good player. But he dropped in the rankings recently, and I thought I thought, given where he is right now, he's still got a full senior year to develop. I thought that on 3 was right in kind of dipping his rankings some, just because when I think about smaller linebackers, to me, you have to be like Zacoby McClain, where you're ready to take on blocks coming downhill at 6 foot, 205 pounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to me, that's where Jamichael gets a little dinged. I think he's a really good athlete. I think he's fantastic sideline to sideline, but I think he lacks a little size. And when he takes on or engages in blocks, he lacks the inability to kind of disengage at that point with violent hands and
Yeah.
continue to make plays, right?
Right.
So, and that's what you're talking about. That Zacoby guy, it hasn't existed for Auburn, and maybe it does. Maybe this is the year you start to see somebody come through. I think DeMarcus Riddick has put on good size. Elijah Melendez is somebody that we've heard a lot about. You've got Xavier Atkins. What happens with Blake Diaz? You've got a lot of athletic players. And in this class in particular, right now, who you have committed, Shadarius Tootle, I think he fits in really good at the mic. And again, I'm high on Jamichael Garrett, just not maybe in the way that's projected as a top 150 player at this point. If he develops over the course of his senior year, then we're talking. But in this class specifically, I mean, I think you're looking at that young man from Wadley. If you're Auburn, and you're thinking, okay, that's a dude, right?
Yeah. He's definitely got the athletic ability. I mean, what's better than one DeMarcus Riddick? Two.
Two, yes,
And I don't know if I'm not saying he's exactly like DeMarcus Riddick. There's some differences. I think he's longer. I think he's got more length.
more
Um,
girth at this point, maybe not as
yeah,
much athleticism. Yeah,
frame to build on. I mean, he could be a 240-pound guy playing linebacker. So, um, to me though, it's Tyler Atkinson.
oh yes. Ooh.
That's the one. And now I know that we don't feel like Auburn's going to get this guy. There's an outside shot. I'm not giving up on it yet, but that's the guy. He's got the mentality I'm looking for. It just in today's football, I'll just be straight up with it. It doesn't exist as much anymore. It's sort of a throwback when you have a guy like that. That's what we called Elijah Melendez. Even though he has the talent of a modern day linebacker, he's got the attitude of a linebacker from the early 2000s,
For sure.
before targeting was a thing. My kind of guy.
Sure.
So, that's what I'm looking for. I hope Elijah Melendez is that guy. I have a feeling he is. I have a funny feeling that he is. But if not, if you're talking about the 26 class, Tyler Atkinson is that guy all day.
No, I'm with you. Tyler Atkinson is a freak athlete and easily a top 5 player in this class for me. I mean, he's just a dude.
Yeah.
On the field and off the field.
For sure. All right, question 9, KMR4AU, one of my How Batches last week. With 2 top 10 classes in the books and Hugh saying he needs a third, how would you compare this class at this point in the year, pre-Big Cat, to the last 2 classes? I love this question. I think that's a great question because one of my favorite things to do is to look at the month of March,
Mm-hmm.
walk back through it, see what happened, the big events, who visited, go back to a year ago and go, now, how does this compare? Is it better? Is it worse? I personally think that things don't stay the same. I think they either get better or worse. So, if you're comparing the 2 months of March and February, as of right now, I would say that things have been slower than a year ago.
Yes.
And there could be a lot of reasons for that. Could be the schedule change. Could be, Hugh Freeze got some news that he was not hoping for. And that's part of, maybe it slowed down a little bit when that happened.
Sure.
But it's about 4 times out of the last 7 days. It's right where it was last year. We're now back into it the way that I expected it to be. I'd say as far as the class goes, are you ahead of where you are as far as commitments? Maybe not number, but talent-wise?
Yes, quality. I think the quality is better. And you had a couple of decommitments, because you had some coaching staff attrition. I'm trying to think of the young man who was a safety that flipped to UCF and then subsequently to SC. I think Riddick was the last name.
Oh, yeah, Reddick.
Reddick. I'm sorry.
D. Reddick.
Yep. And then you had the defensive lineman out of Tennessee that had decommitted.
Oh, Kalen Edwards.
Kalen Edwards, and then Antonio Coleman had flipped back to Alabama at that point. So,
boy, if you remember how the corner was that day,
right?
I certainly do. It was not a fun day for me personally.
No, you had some churn in the class, and then you also lost your tight end commit that you subsequently got back. Just a few months later. But as far as overall quality in this class, I don't remember a guy the caliber of Devin Carter being committed.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't think had we gotten our big offensive line commit at this point.
That would be Tavares Dice.
Yeah, had TJ committed at this point?
He was a March commitment.
Okay.
He was definitely a March commitment. Let's see. I'm looking at the class.
And he probably would have been the bell cow to me in the class at that point.
So at this point, and I still got my screen sharing if you want to show that, Zach. Malik Autry was the first commit, obviously.
Right.
So he was in. Let's see.
Well, now I forget. You had the two big defensive linemen committed. So you had.
Oh, yeah. Who was the other one?
Jordan.
That's right. And Jacaleb Falk as well.
Yeah. So maybe I'm wrong. You had 3 really high quality in-state kids all committed in the class at that point.
Ty Buster committed in March.
Who Jake Thornton thinks might be the steal of the class.
Yeah. And Tavares Dice was committed in March, and Devin Williams as well. So I think it's pretty close.
Yeah.
I would almost call that a push.
Yeah, more than I would have thought. I thought this class was better until you start replaying that, and it's like, well, no, maybe I'm wrong. Because that one was more line of scrimmage heavy at this point, whereas this one is more perimeter talent right now at the same stage.
Yeah, I agree. So I would say it's almost a push on that. Receiver obviously is better in this one right now.
Yes.
And no shot at receiver in the last class. It seemed like it took a while to get that going. That position. We remember we kind of talked about receiver as we are running back now. Like what exactly are they going to do here? Because Derek Smith didn't look like an option at the time.
Nope.
We didn't know who Sam Turner was really at the time. And Sam Turner, by the way, that's another freshman you could have easily named.
Sure.
So, it's funny how it works, man. It's such a weird time because we think we know so much, and we will soon learn that we do not.
Well said.
We do know. Don't get me wrong. We do. But it's going to change, and there's going to be names that you're going to be like, wow, okay. That's just how the staff operates, man. They will pull some, some good ones. So, question number 10, Z Money NC. Is it more important to hit on big names this class or to fill in any remaining holes on the roster? So I'm guessing he means, is it more important to go after the big names on the high school class, or is he saying?
I think he's just saying what's more important, need or buzz?
I see. Well, my answer to that's always going to be need. Buzz is good, but there's a reason why it's called buzz that eventually stops. I've had a couple of good quotes tonight.
Yeah, you have. No, I agree with you, Cole, especially in this class to me. Like, I think this staff has probably earned the benefit of the doubt in recruiting. I think they have done a better job than some that we've had here at Auburn, better job than a lot on some of their projections. When you think about, you were just talking about a 3-star safety out of Thompson that has really kind of blossomed and is starting to come into his own.
Yeah.
That was a heavy projection for them. Blake Diaz was a heavy camp projection for them that panned out and ended up being a 4-star across the industry. So there are a lot of guys that this staff has done a good job on kind of IDing early in their recruiting process that might not have necessarily been like the premier name. So I agree with you, Cole. I think need is what's most important. Fill those needs as best you can. You're obviously going to stay on stars, right? Like you're not going to go away from some of those guys that are top end of your board, but don't cut your nose off to spite your face if you've got a very, very obvious need right there and you have somebody that's able to fill it and somebody that's high on your board, regardless of the name that's on the back of their jersey.
Right. I would always pick need, and I would always say, do not pass up on a playmaker. Just
Don't do it.
You'll regret it. Alan, do you have any how about you tonight? We went a little long.
We did. I'm going to have some more next week. I've got a running list, but nobody I'm ready to say right now. I'm going to save it till Jeffrey gets back next week.
Well, I have 5.
Okay.
I think you're really going to like one of them.
Okay.
Maybe all of them, but definitely one of them.
Okay.
You know what? I'll start with that one. Alan Head.
No.
For me. And you know what? I almost just forget. You're kind of like Blake Woodby, Alan. I like to give a how about you to a voice of reason.
Okay.
And I kind of scan over you on that because it's like, well, yeah, he's the voice of reason on the board, dude. What are you talking about? But I think you took it to another level in a certain thread that will remain unnamed.
Okay.
Basically this whole thing, might be just a touch overblown.
Sure.
If you know what I'm talking about. And you pointed that out, and I thought it was great. So how about you to Alan Head?
Appreciate you, buddy.
Absolutely. Going along with that, Bobby Sweatpants, voice of reason.
Yes, Bobby's a good one. Make that a times 2 for me, for old Bobby.
There you go. Bobby, I'll just tell you what he said. I think it was great. He talking about this weird basketball football war that's going on right now. I don't subscribe to that. Bobby Sweatpants said I was quite literally told to kill myself because I commented on the rebounding issue. I think that's a little too far. So I'm glad he pointed that out.
Yeah.
So Bobby gets one from me. Hidden Tiger, also a voice of reason. I think he had a really good comment. So Hidden Tiger, Raxby's, he was the one that started that thread.
Yes. Yeah.
So he gets one. And then someone that's been on the board for a long time used one of my favorite quotes ever in some thread. I think it was about running back pass protection. Wiregrass Official, who is, by the way, a referee. And I think that is awesome.
There you go.
I commend him for that. He said, you either coach it or you allow it.
Well said. This
You
is
either
true.
coach it. You either coach it or you allow it. And if you remember my entire argument when it came to Peyton Thorne and Hugh Freeze in the offense this past year, I tried to drive that home. And I'm just so glad to see somebody else lives by that. So
there you go.
Those are my 5. How about you 2? Alan Head, Bobby Sweatpants, Hidden Tiger, Raxby's, and Wiregrass Official. So that'll do it for us tonight. We did not have Jeffrey. Hopefully we brought it home for you. Mixed it up a little bit, because we get a little crazy when Jeffrey's not here.
That's right. We get into the football talk.
It happens. Forgive us. But glad y'all joined us. Hope you learned something. We will be back on the Collins Show Sunday night, and we will keep it going, man. Recruiting should be picking up. Football's picking up. Basketball's trying to win a natty. Stay tuned to Auburn Live. Subscribe to us if you're not joined with us, because if you like this, you'll like that. Guarantee it. Y'all have a good one. See ya.